Rome had fallen, but its shadow still ruled the world. From the ashes of the West, a new power rose in the East. Gold replaced glory, walls replaced legions, and survival became the new conquest. This was no longer ancient Rome. This was the beginning of a new empire, Byzantium. In 533, Belisarius achieved his first major success by inflicting a heavy defeat on the Vandals in North Africa and occupying their lands. He then turned against the Ostrogoths and, from 535 onward, began wars to reoccupy all of Italy. In addition, in 551, Justinian I sparked a rebellion in the Visigothic kingdom in Spain, and thanks to this uprising he succeeded in annexing the southern coastal region of the Iberian Peninsula to Eastern Roman territory. Returning to Italy after arduous and intermittent wars, the entire Italian peninsula once again became Roman territory in 553, of course, only for a short time. Emperor Justinian, who restored the Eastern Roman Empire to its former glory, died in 565 and was succeeded by Justin II, who is considered an unsuccessful emperor. During his reign, the Lombards invaded nearly the entire peninsula starting from northern Italy, and the emperors who followed him were also unable to stop this decline. After the loss of Italy, the Eastern Roman Sassanid Wars that began in 572 lasted for a full 50 years, during which the Sassanids at one point occupied almost the entire Anatolian part of Roman territory. Finally, in 628, as both sides were exhausted and gave up, the war ended, and this war, so to speak, crippled both sides. During this period, the Eastern Roman Empire was expelled from the Iberian Peninsula by the Visigoths, and both the Eastern Romans and the Sassanids became vulnerable to attacks coming from the Arabian Peninsula. By 670, the Muslim conquests had both put an end to the existence of the Sassanids and caused the Eastern Roman Empire to lose its southern territories. For the following 100 years, the Eastern Roman Empire managed to protect its borders while struggling first against the Umayyads and then the Abbasids in the east. However, two major dangers threatening Rome were approaching on its western frontier: the Bulgars and the Franks. The Bulgar Khanate, founded in 681, grew steadily until 800 and occupied some of the territories of the Eastern Roman Empire. Another danger, the Franks, after conquering all of Gaul during the reigns of Pepin the Short and Charlemagne, advanced to the borders of the Roman Empire. At this time, the Roman throne was occupied by the 10-year-old Constantine VI, so the empire was ruled by his mother Irene. However, even when Constantine reached the age of 16 and became old enough to rule the state, his mother Irene refused to relinquish power, and a struggle for the throne began between mother and son. Taking advantage of this turmoil, the Abbasid army under Caliph al-Mahdi entered Anatolian lands and advanced as far as present-day Sakarya, forcing Rome to seek peace. Emperor Constantine, by paying a tribute of 70,000 dinars to the Abbasids, signed a 3-year peace with the Muslims and gained the opportunity to focus on the struggle for the throne. During this period, the situation of the empire in the west was also deteriorating steadily. After eliminating the Lombards in northern Italy, the Frankish leader Charlemagne invaded Rome and proclaimed himself emperor. In addition, the Bulgars were constantly harassing the eastern Roman borders and gradually occupying Roman territories. In 802, Emperor Nicephorus ascended the Roman throne, sent an army against the Franks, and personally marched against the Bulgars. In the battles that followed, the Franks defeated the Eastern Roman army and occupied the region of Dalmatia. In the war against the Bulgar Khanate, Emperor Nicephorus lost his life, and the Bulgars began rapidly occupying Roman lands, reaching their greatest extent in 927 during the reign of Simeon I. The Bulgars were no longer referred to as a Khanate, but as an empire. However, with Simeon's death in the same year, the tide suddenly turned, and the Bulgarian Empire entered a rapid period of decline. After this period, the Eastern Roman Empire waged successful wars against the Bulgarian Empire during the reigns of Romanos I, Constantine VII, Romanos II, Nicephorus II, and John I, and during the reign of Basil II, it put an end to the existence of the Bulgarian Empire. Thus, in 1018, the Eastern Roman Empire succeeded in reclaiming all the territories it had lost in the Balkans centuries earlier. Following the Bulgarian success, Basil set out on a Caucasian campaign in 1021, first annexing Tbilisi and then capturing the Armenian city of Vaspurakan, thereby becoming neighbors with the Buyids. However, during this campaign, the Emperor fell ill, returned to Constantinople, and died in 1025, having breathed a sigh of relief during the reign of Emperor Basil. The Roman Empire then experienced a period of calm for a while, until 1037. In 1037, the Seljuk state, founded east of the Caspian Sea by Seljuk Beg, quickly grew in strength and became fully independent in 1040 after defeating the Ghaznavids at the Battle of Dandanakan. Afterwards, Tughril Beg sent a reconnaissance force of 50,000 men toward Anatolia, which was his main objective. When this force encountered the Eastern Roman army on the Pasinlar Plain, the two sides engaged in their first pitched battle in 1048. After a battle that lasted from evening until morning, both sides withdrew with substantial spoils. After 1048, Seljuk raids into Anatolia continued, and with the defeat of the Buyids in 1056, the frontier reached the gates of Anatolia. After the deaths of Chagri Beg and Tughril Beg, the Eastern Roman Empire assumed that the great Seljuk state would collapse. However, Alp Arslan, who ascended the Seljuk throne, began conquests toward the west. By 1071, having established dominance in the Caucasus, especially in Georgia and Kars, the Seljuks were now strongly pressing the gates of Anatolia. During this period, Romanos Diogenes, who promised to defeat the Seljuks and drive them out of this region, was placed on the throne of the Eastern Roman Empire. Diogenes marched with an army of approximately 200,000 men, while Alp Arslan advanced with a force of 50,000, and they met on the plain of Manzikert. In the battle fought on the 26th of August 1071, the Great Seljuk state emerged victorious despite being numerically inferior. And with this battle, the conquest of Anatolia began. By 1092, the Great Seljuk state had conquered almost all Eastern Roman territories in Anatolia, but after this date it began to decline due to the impact of the Crusades. Although the Great Seljuk state fragmented in 1157, the Eastern Roman Empire was never again able to reclaim its former Anatolian lands. Moreover, due to both political and economic turmoil that erupted within the state, it lost northern Balkan territories to the Bulgarians and Serbs in 1191. When the year 1203 arrived, the target of the Crusades, organized for Muslims this time, was Jerusalem. However, when ships and funds sufficient to transport 200,000 Crusader soldiers could not be found, the Crusaders received an unusual proposal. Former Eastern Roman Emperor Isaac I offered the Crusaders ships and money on the condition that his son be made Emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire. Accepting this offer, the Crusaders arrived in Constantinople in 1203 and burned and plundered the entire city. However, no matter what the new emperor did, he was unable to obtain the required number of ships and amount of money. Feeling deceived, the Crusader army attacked Constantinople once again, and on the 12th of April 1204 captured the city and established their own empire. After the reigning emperor and the claimants to the throne were killed, the politician Theodoros, who had defended the city, fled to Nicaea following the fall of the city. There, Theodoros founded the Empire of Nicaea as the successor to Rome and proclaimed himself Emperor of Nicaea. By 1246, as a result of a series of wars fought among the empires of Nicaea, Bulgaria, and the Latin Empire, the territories of the Latin Empire gradually shrank. During this period, the Mongols coming from Asia swept across the entire continent and destroyed all the states that stood in their way. The Anatolian Seljuk state also suffered from this Mongol invasion and ceased to be a threat to the Empire of Nicaea. After Theodoros, John III, who ascended the throne, captured some territories by waging successful wars against the Bulgarians and the Despotate of Epirus. Along with these successful campaigns, while John III completely surrounded the Latin Empire, he began to make plans to recapture Constantinople. However, when John III, whose life was not long enough for this, died in 1261. Completing this plan was left to Michael VIII. As soon as Michael VIII ascended the throne, he moved against the Latin Empire and recaptured Constantinople, declaring that after 58 years the Eastern Roman Empire had been re-established. As the Anatolian Seljuk state was on the verge of collapse, Turkish principalities were established one after another in Anatolia. Among these principalities, there was one that, since its establishment in 1299, had continuously carried out raids into Eastern Roman territories. This principality was the Ottoman Beylik. Taking advantage of the succession struggles that began in Eastern Rome in 1331, the Serbian kingdom and the Ottoman Beylik took action. While the Serbs occupied half of the territories in the Balkans by 1350, the Ottoman Beylik seized all of the Anatolian lands. Subsequently, the Ottomans, continuing their conquests under the leadership of Orhan Gazi, crossed into Rumelia and carried on their conquests toward the Balkans. While these conquests continued to increase without pause during the reigns of other Ottoman sultans, by 1431 Eastern Rome was reduced to only Constantinople. Although the city was subjected to Ottoman attacks many times until 1453, it managed to resist. However, in 1453 it was conquered after a siege lasting exactly 53 days by His Majesty Sultan Mehmed II, the father of conquests, who was at the head of the Ottoman state. With the fall of Constantinople, the Eastern Roman Empire, which had existed for exactly 1,058 years, also took its place among the dusty pages of history.